The story is about 2 years ago when I was 19 years old. We lived in a four-story apartment, which floor did not have a parking lot. But at the end of it was a dark corridor where there were 8 warehouses related to units, and the lamp was usually burned out. Although once in a while they bought a lamp for the corridor of warehouses with the money of our construction charge, but the lamp did not last more than 2 or 3 days, and it turned black and burned. And the residents were almost used to using the flashlight of their phones whenever they wanted to go to a warehouse. Apparently, our apartment was one of the first complexes that were built in this town. It was not very old, but it was older than the rest of our building. One of the storerooms had broken glass and was full of broken wood and plastic items, and a big lock had been put on it, and the door was not opened ever once a year. This warehouse was very famous among the small children of the neighborhood, and they used to say to him, "Give me the house of the master and his children." I have heard many times from the little children in the street that they tell each other stories about this gentleman and talk very seriously about the sounds of his laughter and that of his children. The strange thing was that every little kid, even if it didn't belong to his complex, knew at least 1 or 2 stories about Mr. Bate and his children. The warehouse of our unit, which was the last unit of our building, and we lived on the fourth floor, was at the end of the corridor directly in front of the same warehouse. I usually stay up at night until 3 or 4 in the morning. One of these nights it occurred to me to go to get 1 or 2 of my old books from the storage room and read them. I went down the stairs and reached the dark hallway of the storage room. I turned on the light switch, but it didn't turn on as usual, and the gentle sound of the wind outside, and most importantly, a narrow and dark corridor scares a lot of people. But anyway, I satisfied myself and moved forward step by step, taking care not to get my foot stuck anywhere. When I got to our warehouse, I unlocked it and quickly turned on the light inside, when I felt a thick voice say very softly behind me, "Hiss." My heart sank. I thought I was delusional, but my heart was breaking. The words the children said about the man and his children being beaten passed in front of my eyes. I didn't have the courage to look at the glass of our warehouse, lest I see the picture of the back warehouse. I quickly picked up my book and convinced myself that I heard wrong. I turned off the light and locked the door and started walking very fast, and I could hear the sound of my own feet in the dark, and I felt that this sound was from 2 pairs of feet and one was following me. I got scared and the book fell out of my hand, and when I bent down to cut it, I heard the sound of Carrie's laughter that made the hair stand on end. The sound was like the laughter of a cat who was laughing behind me, and the sound of 3 or 4 babies screaming and crying came from the hall. Now that I think about it, the blood stops in my veins. I climbed the stairs at full speed and never dared to go back to that warehouse. Was what the children of neighborhood said about Mr. Bate, and his children true? How many times did I want to go to the alley and ask the little children if Mr. Bate's children are babies or not? But I never dared. I preferred to think that I became delusional. Of course, maybe this was my illusion and it happened to me because I had thought about it a lot. I do not know. Now it's been a year since we left that neighborhood. That's why I dared to write this story. Second story, there is a haunted house in Washington. Everyone named it Row Haft, because that soul always shows itself to everyone at the beginning of 7 o'clock. Not long ago, a boy named James lived in that house. One day, his friend Petey went to his house and agreed to stay the night with him. James told Petey of the ghost's work in that house. As a result, the two agreed to stay up all night to see what the ghost would do. Although they didn't expect anything to happen, before 7 o'clock in the morning, it was just past midnight when the ghost suddenly screamed, "Why aren't you sleeping? Go to bed as soon as possible." Then he closed the room door tightly on them. They stared at each other in astonishment for a while and then went down the stairs. Then, in the living room, they were sitting on a couch and talking when suddenly the computer turned on by itself, and then, in disbelief, they realized that the computer chat room appeared in front of them. James went to the computer and unplugged it, but strangely, the device did not turn off. Pete immediately picked up Spunk Ball and threw it towards the chair in front of the computer to see if someone was sitting on it. And interestingly, the ball, as if something or someone had hit it, floated and went towards Pete. Return. Then suddenly the situation returned to the original state and the computer turned off by itself. At 7 o'clock in the morning, the furniture of the house moved, and the sound of the ghost's evil laughter echoed in the air. Then he shouted to the two, "Get out of my house immediately!" And James said to the spirit of the woman's cry, "Oh, foolish spirit, no one is afraid of you, so you better stop and get out of here immediately." The noises stopped, and for 3 days no sign of the ghost was seen or heard.